Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. We can never accept this. And if we won't accept it, it won't happen. This statement came from a leading official of the European Car Umbrella Organization referring to limiting CO2 emission from new cars back in 2005. In retrospect, it's hard to even imagine anyone could say such a thing in the 21st century, but for Europe's powerful car industry, this attitude was normal. What he didn't know was these old certainties was changing fast. Within a year from that statement, his industry's control over legislation would be falling apart. Yes, the old legacy automakers has been fighting against the European emission standard for decades. They have been caught lying and cheating multiple times, and it even continues to this day. So I would like to show you a little bit of history seen through the eyes of T&E, Transport and Environment, a European NGO that has been fighting against the legacy automakers for 30 years to get them to lower the emission from their cars, because as you will see, 60 years of progress from the legacy automakers to lower their emission is no progress at all, as T&E has some great insights to this battle. And the European automakers was untouchable here in Europe. But they do sell cars globally, and the US Environmental Protection Agency really showed off their true colors, and the European legacy automakers did no longer have immunity, and their house of cards is collapsing. They still fight and cheat to this day, as you will see in this video, and they are not ramping up EVs as fast as they can and want to make you believe they are ramping up exactly as fast as they are forced to do, not 1 inch more. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. Yes, the car industry has been lying and fighting against legislators for more than 30 years. And T&E, Transport and Environment, an NGO established in 1988, has been one of the NGOs fighting against the car industry, trying to get the EU lawmakers to make mandatory standards for CO2 emission. T&E made a whole book about their fight for cleaner emission cars, where they share a lot of details about how all of this went down. I will leave a link down below so you can read it yourself. But to make it short, T&E was trying to get the car industry to accept an emission standard of 120 grams of CO2 emission per kilometer by 2012. Of course, the European car industry didn't want that and thought they were untouchable, which they pretty much were at that time, as in Europe, car makers were overseen by their friends in the National Transport Ministry. In reality, they were untouchable. So it was no coincidence that dieselgate broke out in the US. As Julia Polishkanova, T&E's senior director, explained, the US Environment Protection Agency, EPA, has the power to test vehicles, and if there's a problem, they can impose huge fine on car makers. And that was exactly what happened for Volkswagen with dieselgate. EPA found out that they were cheating and lying deliberately. They created software to cheat, so they didn't have to lower their emission on their cars. Because the car industry insisted all the way back in 1996 it was not feasible to make cars that consume less than 5 liters per kilometer. Impossible. At which Greenpeace unveiled its re-engineered version of Renault Twingo, which could travel 100 kilometers on 3 liters. the car makers had to admit the obstacle to be surmounted was not technological, but yet they did nothing. Just look at the efficiency of the Volkswagen Beetle in 1948, 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers, and in 2008 the Beetle's efficiency was 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers. Yes, they didn't care to try to make their car more efficient. 60 years of progress was no progress at all. But after fighting against the auto industry that didn't want to make their cars less polluting, and when the law came forcing them to do so, they were cheating with emission tests. And the Volkswagen dieselgate was a big turning point for this whole fight to lower the emission of our transportation. Because as former director of T&E, Joe Ding said, that told me that as long as cars has an exhaust pipe, the car makers will always find a way to cheat. Take away the exhaust pipe and they can't cheat. It was clear that if we wanted to be serious about tackling climate emission from road transport, we had to push for a transition to electric. Yes, because this has really not been on T&E's agenda before that. They had been fighting for 25 years to get the lawmakers to put in a mandatory CO2 emission standard to lower the ICE vehicles' emission, with some success, but Dieselgate, together with the emergence of electric cars like the Tesla Model S that came out in 2012, showed this was possible. As Joe Ding also said, wind and solar prices were dropping, and by 2015, most new power was wind and solar. Cars like the Nissan Leaf, BMW i3, and the Tesla Model S suggested that electric cars could be much more than a niche, especially if battery price kept coming down, which they did and are still doing. So we started to run the numbers and debated within the organization, and soon it became clear that we needed a new strategy. And this was the moment when the laws we have officially got today started to take shape. And the European politician could also see that the European car makers were investing about 7 times more money in the production of EVs in China than in Europe, because China was starting the shift to EVs and there was no incentive or rather any law forcing them to make EVs in Europe just yet. And as Joe continued, this was key in convincing EU lawmakers to accept a higher 2030 target of 37.5% less emission, much to the dismay of the automaker CEOs. The EU Commission presented the law requiring 55% emission reduction from new cars between 2021 to 2030, as well as a goal of no CO2 emission per kilometer by 2035. And this could make Europe the birthplace of the internal combustion engine, the first continent to say goodbye to cars running on oil. Well, if China doesn't beat us to the punch. But in 2020, the new target was approved, set a fleet-wide target of 95 grams CO2 per kilometer for the year 2020 to 2024. That is pretty much not possible if you don't make EVs, as no one has ICE cars that are that efficient. But as you can see on this list of car makers, they only just apply to the target. And we can see the Volkswagen did miss the target by 0.5 gram per kilometers driven in 2020, even though they make a big push of the ID3 in the last quarter of 2020, where they put a lot of unfinished cars on the market. And this little miss cost them over 100 million euros in penalties. And remember, Tesla still here in 2022 will earn something like $1.6 billion in regulatory credits. So far, year to date, they have already made $1.3 billion. So if some of these automakers were not able to buy CO2 credits from someone like Tesla, they would not even be below the little green dot on the chart here. So this also explains why car makers are not ramping up as fast as someone like Tesla. They say they will, but because they, first of all, don't believe Tesla could ramp up as fast as they're doing, but secondly, as we can see on this list here, they make just enough not to get a fine and that's it. Because they lose money on every EV they sell, so they don't want to make too many. But if they don't sell EVs, they will not get to their CO2 target and get even bigger fines. So they only do as much as they are forced to do. Like Hyundai and Kia, that makes great EVs and have been doing so for many, many years. They are also only making just enough to be under the target. No more. So we see the automakers don't really want to make EVs. They are forced to do it. And that is also why they are so far behind, because they didn't start taking EVs serious before they were forced to do so by lawmakers and Tesla and the Chinese. And because they are not really going all in as they say they are actually struggling a bit just to make the ones they want to, and therefore have to buy credits from someone like Tesla. As every automaker analyst has been saying for years that Tesla will no longer make money on credits. But as we can see, Tesla is probably going to make more money in credits this year as they did the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. Yes, the competition is coming, but painfully slow. It must be very painful just handing over hundreds of millions of dollars to their competitor Tesla because they can't keep up. But it's not only about CO2 emission and climate change. The pollution of the air we breathe is the most concerning effect of them all. Air pollution causes an estimated 500,000 premature deaths every year in Europe, and due to air pollution's negative effect on health cost tens of billions of dollars in health costs. Poor air quality disproportionately impact lower income households and minorities. Road transport is a major cause of toxic air right across Europe. But the legacy automakers just don't care. They don't want to do what is needed because it will cost them money. Just look at the 60 years of progress from Volkswagen to make their cars more efficient, to help us all breathe cleaner air. Yeah, there were no progress for 60 years. Yes, the industry has a long history of cheating regulations, and dieselgate scandal being just the most prominent one. It also has a history of overinflating emission compliance cost, while the actual cost of adding better emission control technologies are not prohibited. The EU Commission estimates that toxic emission can be slashed at very low cost, in the region of 100 to 500 euros increase per car, depending on the stringency of the Euro 7 standard. Less than a paint upgrade on an entry-level car such as the Volkswagen Golf or the Ford Fiesta. But opposing the ambitious Euro 7, car automakers are sending a clear signal. They are prioritizing profits over people's health. They don't care about CO2 emission and the toxic gas that their products are sending out, only in advertising. They have shown that pretty clear over the last 30 years. Since the early days of the Euro pollution standard, the car industry has claimed that emission limits are not feasible, lobbying to weaken and delay them. Daimler, Volkswagen, BMW, Audi and Porsche went as far as illegally concluding to delay the development of using selective catalytic reduction (SCR) emission control technology to reduce toxic NOx emission. Despite its maturity, they were fined 875 million euros by the Commission for collusion to delay emission reduction and held back the development of technology that could have reduced harmful emission from their vehicles that we are breathing. Yes, they have fought against this for 30 years. They have been caught lying and cheating again and again. And Porsche has just again been caught lying. The automaker has allegedly lied about its car's fuel economy figures stretching all the way back to 2005, which could cost anything up to $80 million for Porsche in penalties. Surprise, surprise. And if you think Tesla is late on their promise on semi-truck and Cybertruck, you should try look back and see what Volkswagen and GM and all the others promised many years ago. GM said back in 2017 they would have 18 EV models by October 2022. They have 4. so only down 14 models. And this is the same with Volkswagen and Audi. Just go Google and you will see what they promised many years ago. They have been all talk but no action. And as I showed in this video, we know why that is. They don't really want to make EVs, but they would like you to think they do. So I'm sorry, legacy automakers, but what is happening right now, you really had it coming. I'm not rooting for them to go bankrupt, because there are a lot of people working for them, and I feel really sorry for them that their ship has been this badly guided by their captains. And the transition to EVs will happen faster if we have them here, making the amount of EVs they actually can, than if they weren't here. It's hard to feel truly sorry for the board members and leaders of these companies that has been deliberately lying and cheating to us all for their profits. There is a little girl called Karma, and the legacy automakers might get to know her a little bit better over the next couple of years. Good luck.
And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.